Hello, my name is Jin-woo Park, though most people here just call me Jin. Come sit with me for a while. I want to tell you a story. My story. It's not an easy one, but it's true, and it's mine. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. Get comfortable, because this story will take some time to tell. It's about losing everything and finding something unexpected. It's about two broken people who stumbled into each other's lives when we both needed saving. This story begins in the winter of 2019 in Paris, France. A city of light, they call it, though for me it was mostly cold and gray and indifferent. I was 21 years old when I arrived, but I felt much older. I'd come from China, not my homeland, but the place where I'd lived for 3 years with my mother, working in factories trying to make enough money to survive. My mother had died there in China, but it wasn't illness or age that took her. It was me, my fault, my consequences that she paid for. I'd gotten into trouble with the law, a fight with some thugs who'd cornered us one night, demanding money, getting violent. I'd defended us, defended my mother, but I'd fought too hard. One of them was badly hurt. The police didn't care that we'd been attacked first. They cared that I was an immigrant, illegal, a problem. And the punishment for someone like me wouldn't be a trial or a fair sentence. It would be a labor camp, the kind of place people whispered about, where you went in and rarely came out, where the treatment was brutal, inhuman, where people disappeared. So we ran. My mother and I ran through the streets of that Chinese city, the police behind us, sirens wailing. We were crossing a street, running hand in hand, when the van came. Too fast, too close. I made it across, she didn't. I held her in the street while people gathered, while the sirens got closer. She was dying, bleeding, and she used her last breaths to make me promise. Live, Jin-woo, she gasped, gripping my hand with surprising strength. Promise me, no matter how hard it gets, you live, you don't give up. Alma, I can't. Promise me, she insisted, her eyes fierce even as the light faded from them. Go to France, leave China, build a life, live enough for both of us. Promise me. I promise, I sobbed. I promise, Alma. She smiled then, just a little, and then she was gone. I had to leave her there in the street, the sirens getting closer, knowing that if they caught me, her death would mean nothing. So I ran. I left my mother's body, and I ran, using the money we'd hidden to pay a smuggler, to get papers, to get to France like she made me promise. So I ran. I used the last of our savings to pay a smuggler to get me to France. I left everything behind. My mother's grave, the room we'd shared, any small sense of stability we'd managed to build. I came to France with almost nothing. A backpack, some clothes, my mother's scarf, and papers that proved I existed but gave me no right to stay. I arrived in Paris alone, completely, utterly alone in a country where I barely spoke the language, where I had no papers, no status, no right to exist. Just me and my mother's memory and the guilt that I'd survived when she hadn't, that I'd left her in a foreign country's soil to run from consequences that were my fault. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning, or rather at the beginning of when my life changed. When I met her, Mia, the woman who taught me that sometimes you have to break completely before you can heal. Close your eyes if you'd like. Let the rhythm of my words carry you. This isn't a fairy tale. It's raw and real and sometimes painful, but it's also about hope found in the darkest places, about love that grows not in spite of brokenness, but because of it. This is Where We Found Each Other. A story of survival, of loss, and of finding home in another person when you have nowhere else to belong. It was February when I met her, 3 months after I'd arrived in Paris, and I was barely surviving. I'd been sleeping wherever I could, in parks when it wasn't too cold, in the metro stations when it was, sometimes in the stairwells of apartment buildings if I could slip in behind someone. I had my backpack with everything I owned, a change of clothes, a thin blanket, my mother's scarf, a water bottle, and the papers that proved nothing except that I was waiting, always waiting, for France to decide if I deserved to stay. I was trying to get asylum, trying to become legal, but the process was impossibly slow. The immigration office treated me like a number, like a problem to be processed and probably rejected. I'd go to my appointments, fill out endless forms in broken French and English, and wait, always waiting. To survive, I did whatever work I could find that didn't require papers, washing dishes in restaurant kitchens that paid cash under the table, unloading trucks in the early morning, day labor at construction sites where no one asked questions. The pay was terrible, always less than they'd promised, and I was constantly afraid someone would call the authorities. The money went to cheap food, instant noodles, day-old bread, whatever was on sale at the discount stores. I was always hungry, always cold, always tired. But I kept going because that's what I'd promised my mother as I stood alone at her grave in China, knowing I'd never be able to visit it again. "I'll live, Oma," I'd whispered. "I'll survive. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but I'll live." So I survived, or I existed at least. There's a difference. That night in February, the night I met Mia, I'd been walking through the 18th arrondissement trying to stay warm. It was bitterly cold, the kind of cold that hurts your lungs when you breathe. I'd stopped in a small park near Barbès, where some other homeless people had a fire going in a trash can. We stood around it, not talking, just absorbing what little warmth we could. Then 3 young men appeared, teenagers really, probably 17 or 18, French kids looking for trouble because they were bored and cruel. They started taunting us, calling us names, telling us to get out of their park. I tried to ignore them, to just stay by the fire. My hands were shaking from cold, my stomach empty. I just wanted a few more minutes of warmth. But one of them, tall, wearing an expensive jacket, he came right up to me. "Hey, toi, t'es d'où? Where are you from?" His tone made it clear he didn't actually care about the answer. I looked at him, said nothing. I'd learned that engaging with people like this only made things worse. And I'd learned in China what happened when I fought back. Even when I was defending myself, even when I was right, I was always the one who got in trouble. "Oh, tu parles pas français? You don't speak French?" He laughed, turning to his friends. "Probably illegal. Should we call the police? Get you deported?" My stomach clenched with fear, but I kept my face neutral. Just wait them out, I thought. They'll get bored and leave. Don't fight. Don't give them a reason. But they didn't leave. Instead, the tall one shoved me, hard. I stumbled back, and then another one was hitting me. Punches to my ribs, my face. I tried to protect myself, curling up, covering my head, not fighting back. Not fighting back because I couldn't afford to, because one call to the police and I'd be deported, sent back to China, where they were looking for me. The beating lasted maybe 30 seconds, though it felt longer. They went through my pockets while I was on the ground, taking the few euros I had. My phone, old and barely working, but all I had. Then they kicked me once more for good measure and walked away, laughing. I lay there in the cold for a few minutes, catching my breath, tasting blood. My ribs hurt, my face hurt, everything hurt. And I thought about that fight in China, the one that had got me in trouble, the one that had made me have to run. I'd fought back then, protected my mother, and it had cost us everything. I pulled myself up, grabbed my backpack, at least they hadn't taken that, and started walking. I needed to get warm, needed to clean the blood off my face before someone saw me and called the police. The laverie, the laundromat. There was one I'd passed before, open 24 hours. I could go there, use the bathroom, maybe sit for a while and warm up. The laundromat was bright and mostly empty when I stumbled in around midnight. Just one other person, a young woman sitting in a plastic chair, staring at a dryer as it tumbled clothes around and around. She barely glanced at me as I headed to the bathroom. In the bathroom mirror, I assessed the damage. Split lip, already swelling, a cut above my eye, bruises forming on my cheekbone. I washed the blood off carefully with paper towels, wincing at the cold water on my injuries. My ribs ached when I breathed deep, but probably weren't broken. I knew what broken ribs felt like. When I came out of the bathroom, I sat on a bench far from the woman, trying to make myself invisible. The warmth of the laundromat was heavenly after the cold outside. I closed my eyes, just for a moment, telling myself I'd rest for 10 minutes before going back out into the night. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, something was wrong. I jerked awake to find the woman from earlier standing near me, and my wallet, the small wallet I kept in my jacket pocket with my ID, and the last few euros I'd hidden there, was in her hand. Our eyes met. She froze, caught. For a moment we just stared at each other. She was young, maybe 20 I guessed, with dark hair pulled back messily, thin to the point of looking unhealthy, with dark circles under her eyes, and a hardness to her expression that made her look older than she probably was. She started, then stopped. She looked at my face, really looked at it, taking in the fresh injuries, the blood I'd tried to clean. Then she looked down at the wallet in her hand, at the pitiful few euros visible inside, at the ID card with Chinese characters and my photo. Something shifted in her expression. Shame, maybe, or recognition. Merde, she muttered. Shit. She stood there for a long moment, clearly debating whether to run or something else. Then she did something I didn't expect. She walked back over and held out the wallet to me. She said in French, then switched to heavily accented English. Sorry. I thought, sorry. I took the wallet slowly, confused. In my experience, people didn't give things back. People didn't apologize. People took what they could and left you with less. She sat down on the bench across from me, running her hands through her dark hair. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. You okay? She asked, gesturing to my face. Someone beat you up? I nodded, not wanting to explain. This city's full of assholes, she said, matter-of-factly. She was quiet for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. She dug in her bag and pulled out a small first aid kit, tossing it to me. You should put something on those cuts, she said. They'll get infected otherwise. I opened the kit, surprised by the gesture, especially after she'd just tried to rob me. There was antibiotic ointment, bandages, pain relievers. I used some of the ointment on my cuts. Took 2 of the pills with water from my bottle. Thank you, I said in careful English. She shrugged. Least I can do after trying to steal from you. There was a bitter edge to her voice. Though honestly, you don't have much worth stealing. No, I agreed quietly. I don't. The dryer dinged, and she pulled out her clothes, shoving them into a garbage bag without folding them. She was about to leave when she stopped and looked back at me. You got somewhere to sleep tonight? I hesitated, then shook my head. No point in lying. Figured. She seemed to be debating something with herself, chewing on her lip. Look, I got a couch. It's a shitty couch in a shitty apartment, but it's better than freezing to death. You can crash there tonight if you want. I stared at her, not understanding. Why would someone who just tried to rob me offer this? Why? I asked. Guilt? She said with a harsh laugh. I don't know, you look like you need help. I got space. And I was desperate once too. Still am, actually. Maybe I'm paying something forward. Or maybe I just don't want your death on my conscience. Don't make it weird. Everything in me said this could be a trap, could be dangerous. But it was so cold outside, and I was so tired. And at 21 years old, I'd already learned that sometimes you have to take risks to survive. Okay, I said. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The place is a dump. She picked up her garbage bag of laundry. Come on. I grabbed my backpack and followed her out into the night. We walked for about 15 minutes through the quiet streets of Paris, neither of us talking. She moved quickly, purposefully, occasionally looking over her shoulder like she was checking if anyone was following. Her apartment was in a rundown building near Chateau Rouge, 4 floors up with no elevator. The hallway smelled like old cooking and mildew. She unlocked 3 different locks on her door, deadbolt, chain, door lock, and we went inside. It was small, 1 room serving as bedroom and living room combined, a tiny kitchen area, a bathroom visible through a doorway. She hadn't been lying about it being a dump. The furniture was old and stained. There were clothes everywhere, dishes piled in the sink. But it was warm, and there was a roof, and to me it looked like paradise. Bathroom's there if you need it. Couch is all yours. She gestured vaguely. I'll be in the bathroom for a minute. She disappeared into the bathroom, and I heard the lock click. I sat on the couch. She was right, it was shitty. Springs poking through in places, and looked around the apartment. There were pills scattered on the coffee table, empty bottles, alcohol I guessed from the labels, an ashtray overflowing with cigarette butts. Photos on the wall, mostly of a smiling woman who looked like an older version of the girl, her mother probably. The bathroom door opened, and the woman came out. Her pupils were different now, dilated, her movements slower, her expression softer but also more absent. You hungry? She asked, her voice slightly slurred. I think there's some cereal or something. I'm okay, I said, though I was hungry. I'd learned not to take more than was offered. She nodded, fumbling with a pack of cigarettes, lighting one with shaking hands. She sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, smoking and staring at nothing. I'm Mia, she said eventually. Guess we should know each other's names if you're sleeping on my couch. Jin-woo, I said. Jin is okay if that's easier. Jin, she repeated, trying it out. She took a drag of her cigarette. You're not from here. No, I'm from Korea originally, but I came here from China. Long way to travel. Yes. You got family here? No. I paused, the word still hard to say even months later. She died. In China. That's why I had to leave. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw recognition in her eyes. Recognition of that particular kind of aloneness. Yeah, she said quietly. Me too. My mom died last year. Overdose. She laughed bitterly, gesturing around the apartment with her cigarette. Ironic, right? And here I am following right in her footsteps, like mother, like daughter. We sat in silence for a while, her smoking, me just existing in the warmth and relative safety of the apartment. Two 20-something kids who'd lost their mothers, living on the edges of a city that didn't want us. Eventually, she stubbed out her cigarette. "I'm gonna crash," she said, pushing herself up with effort. "You need anything, there's water in the fridge, probably. Help yourself to whatever." "Thank you," I said again. "Really, thank you for..." "Don't," she cut me off. "Don't make it into something. You needed a place, I had a couch. That's all. Tomorrow you go your way, I go mine. We're not friends. This is just a transaction." But it wasn't just a transaction. We both knew it wasn't. In a city full of people who walked past suffering without a second glance, she'd stopped. She'd helped. After trying to rob me, yes, but she'd helped. That meant something. She went to her bed, just a mattress on the floor in the corner, and curled up under a blanket, still fully clothed. Within minutes, her breathing evened out into sleep. I lay on the couch, my ribs aching, my face throbbing, but warmer than I'd been in months. I pulled my mother's scarf from my backpack and held it, like I did every night, finding comfort in the familiar scent that was fading a little more each day. "I'm trying, Ilma," I whispered in Korean. "I'm still trying. I'm sorry I had to leave you. I'm sorry for everything." Outside, I heard sirens and shouting, and all the sounds of a city that never sleeps. But inside this small, messy apartment, there was something like peace, something like safety. I didn't know then that this was the beginning of everything, that this angry, broken 20-year-old woman who tried to rob me and then offered her couch would become the most important person in my life, that we'd save each other in ways neither of us could have imagined. All I knew was that for one night, I wasn't alone, and that was enough. Soft pause, gentle breath. That first night on Mia's couch, I slept better than I had in months. Not peacefully, my ribs ached, my face throbbed, and I woke several times from nightmares about China, about my mother, about the police. But I slept, truly slept, because I felt safe in a way I hadn't since leaving my mother's grave. Neither Mia nor I knew what we were beginning. Two damaged people, 21 and 20 years old, both far too young to carry the weight we carried, thrown together by chance in a city that didn't want either of us. But sometimes that's how healing starts, not with grand gestures or perfect timing, but with a stranger offering a shitty couch on a cold winter night after trying to steal your wallet. I woke to the sound of retching. Morning light was filtering through the thin curtains of Mia's apartment, gray and cold. My body ached from the beating, from sleeping on the broken couch, from months of sleeping in parks and doorways. But the sound coming from the bathroom pulled me fully awake, violent, painful sounds of someone being sick. I sat up slowly, wincing at the protest from my ribs. The apartment looked even worse in daylight, the mess more visible, the poverty more stark. Empty bottles on the counter, pills scattered on the table, clothes in piles on the floor. The bathroom door was slightly ajar, and I could see Mia on the floor, hunched over the toilet. Her whole body was shaking. I stood, unsure what to do. We weren't friends, she'd made that clear. This was just a transaction, but she'd helped me when she didn't have to. She'd given me her couch when she could have just walked away with my wallet. I went to the kitchen area, found a glass that looked relatively clean, filled it with water. Then I knocked gently on the bathroom door. "Go away," Mia's voice came, rough and broken. "I have water," I said. A pause. Then, "Leave it outside." I set the glass down by the door and went back to the couch. A few minutes later, I heard the sink running, then the door opened. Mia emerged looking even worse than she had last night. Pale, sweating, her hands shaking badly. She grabbed the water and drank it down in one long gulp, then sank onto the floor, leaning against the wall. She was wearing the same clothes as yesterday, and I could see track marks on her arms where her sleeves had ridden up. We sat in silence for a while. I didn't know what to say. In the camps in China, I'd seen people using drugs, anything to escape the reality of their lives. I understood why. I just hadn't had the money for it. "You should go," Mia said finally, not looking at me. I'm sure you've got places to be. No, I said honestly, I don't. She laughed bitterly. Right, me neither, I guess. More silence. Outside, I could hear the city waking up. Cars, voices, the rattle of the metro. Thank you, I said, for last night, for the couch. Mia shrugged, still not meeting my eyes. Yeah, well, don't get used to it. I stood up, gathering my backpack. She was right, I should go. This wasn't my place. I'd taken what kindness she'd offered, and now I should leave her alone. But something made me hesitate. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was recognizing something in her that I felt in myself. That desperate, drowning feeling of having nowhere to belong. Do you have food? I asked. I could make something, if you have food. Mia looked at me then, surprised. Why? Because you helped me, I said simply. And because you're sick, and because... I trailed off, not knowing how to explain that after months of being invisible, it felt good to be able to help someone else. She studied me for a long moment, then waved vaguely at the kitchen. There might be some rice, eggs maybe. I don't know. I haven't really been eating much. I found rice in a container that had probably been there for weeks. 3 eggs in the refrigerator, some soy sauce that was mostly empty. It wasn't much, but I could make something. I cooked while Mia sat on the floor, smoking a cigarette, watching me with an expression I couldn't read. I made rice the way my mother had taught me, adding a little water, letting it steam. I fried the eggs simply, just until the edges were crispy. I don't have bowls that are clean, Mia said when I was done. That's okay. I washed 2 bowls that were in the sink, then divided the food between them. We sat on the floor and ate. Mia picked at hers at first, then ate more quickly, like she'd forgotten how hungry she was. I ate slowly, savoring it. It wasn't much, but it was warm and I'd made it, and we were sharing it. That meant something. This is good, Mia said quietly. Thank you. It's just rice and eggs. Still good. She set her bowl down, lit another cigarette. You don't have to stay, you know. I'm not going to kick you out or anything, but you don't owe me. I know, I said. So why are you still here? I thought about that. Why was I still here? I had nowhere else to be, nowhere else to go. But it was more than that. Because you're the first person who's been kind to me since I got to Paris, I said honestly. Even after you tried to steal from me, you still helped. That's rare. Mia laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not kind. I'm a mess. I'm a junkie following in my dead mother's footsteps. I tried to rob you. That's not kindness. You gave the wallet back, I pointed out. You gave me your couch. You shared your medicine. That's kindness. That's guilt, Mia corrected. There's a difference. Maybe there was, or maybe guilt could be a kind of kindness too. I didn't know. We sat there for a while longer, not talking. Then Mia's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her expression changed, hardened, closed off. I have to go out, she said, standing up abruptly. You can stay here if you want, for today, but then you should probably find somewhere else. Okay, I said. Thank you. She grabbed a jacket, shoved her feet into worn sneakers. At the door, she hesitated. Don't steal anything, she said, not that there's anything worth stealing. And don't answer the door if anyone knocks. Just be quiet, invisible. I nodded. I was good at being invisible. Then she was gone, 3 locks clicking behind her, and I was alone in her apartment. I should have left then, taken my things and gone, but I was so tired, and the apartment was warm. And for some reason I trusted that she'd come back, that this small space of safety would still be here. I cleaned up the dishes we'd used. I folded the blanket on the couch. I sat by the window and watched the street below, the flow of people going about their lives, people with places to be, people who belonged. My immigration appointment was in 3 days. Another interview, more forms, more waiting to see if France would let me stay, or send me back to China where I'd be arrested, where I'd disappear into a labor camp, where I'd die slowly like so many others. I touched my mother's scarf in my backpack, felt the familiar ache of grief and guilt. 3 months since I'd run from her body in that street. 3 months of surviving but not living, just like she'd begged me not to do. I'm trying, Emma, I whispered, but I don't know how to live. I only know how to survive. Mia didn't come back until late afternoon. When she did, she was different. Pupils dilated, movements looser, that absent look I'd seen last night. She had a bag of groceries with her, which surprised me. You're still here, she said, not quite focused on me. Yes, is that okay? Yeah, whatever. She set the bag on the counter. I got some food. Figured if you're staying, we should probably eat something other than old rice. She bought instant noodles, a loaf of bread, some cheese, apples that were slightly bruised. Not much, but more than I'd expected. "Thank you," I said. "Stop saying that," Mia said, but without heat. She sank onto the couch, lit a cigarette. "You can stay tonight too if you want, if you don't have anywhere else." "I don't," I admitted, "but I don't want to take advantage." "You're not," Mia interrupted. "Honestly, it's kinda nice, having someone here. I've been alone since my mom died. It gets quiet, too quiet." I understood that. The quiet could be suffocating when you were alone with your thoughts, your guilt, your grief. "I could stay a few days," I said carefully. "If you want. I could help with things. Cleaning, cooking. I don't have much money, but I can work. I could give you something for letting me stay." Mia waved this away. "Keep your money. You need it more than I do. But yeah, you can stay. Just don't expect much from me, okay? I'm not good at this. People. Connection. Whatever." That night I cooked the instant noodles for both of us, adding some of the cheese to make it more substantial. We ate in silence. Mia on the mattress, me on the couch. Then she disappeared into the bathroom again. And when she came out, she was high, floating, gone to wherever the drugs took her. I lay on the couch in the dark, listening to her breathe, and thought about how strange life was. Yesterday I'd been alone, beaten, sleeping in a laundromat. Today I was here, in this broken girl's apartment, being allowed to stay not because I'd earned it, but because she understood loneliness. Two broken people, I thought, both running from dead mothers, both trying to survive in a city that didn't want us, both using whatever we could to make it through another day, her with drugs, me with stubborn, grinding persistence. Maybe that was enough for now. Maybe we didn't need to be whole to help each other. Maybe broken people could lean on each other, hold each other up, even if neither of us was strong enough to stand alone. The next morning I woke early. Mia was still asleep, curled up on her mattress, looking younger and more peaceful than she did when awake. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, looked at the bruises that were now turning purple and yellow. I needed to find work today, needed to make some money. My rent, if you could call it that, was due next week at the hostel where I'd been storing my things, and I needed to eat. I was about to leave when I noticed the state of the apartment. Dishes everywhere, clothes piled up, the bathroom. I didn't even want to think about it. I had time before I needed to look for work, and Mia had helped me. The least I could do was help her. I started with the dishes, washing everything in the sink. Then I gathered the clothes, carefully, not going through her things, just picking up what was obviously dirty and putting it in a pile. I couldn't do laundry without money, but I could organize. I cleaned the bathroom, trying not to look too closely at the various things I found. I took out the trash, swept the floor, wiped down the counters. It took a couple of hours. When I was done, the apartment wasn't clean, not really, but it was better. Less chaotic, more like a place where someone lived rather than just existed. Mia woke up while I was finishing, coming out of the bathroom to find me putting the broom away. She stopped, stared at the apartment, then at me. "What did you do?" "I cleaned," I said, suddenly worried I'd overstepped. "I'm sorry. I should have asked." "No," Mia interrupted. "No, thank you, I haven't." She looked around, something shifting in her expression, something vulnerable, painful. It's been a long time since anyone cared enough to clean. We stood there for a moment, neither of us knowing what to say. "I have to go look for work," I said finally, "but I'll come back tonight, if that's okay." "Yeah," Mia said quietly. "Yeah, that's okay." I spent the day walking through the city, stopping at every restaurant, every construction site, every place that might need an extra pair of hands. Most places turned me away immediately when they saw my face, my obvious foreignness, the desperation I couldn't quite hide. But I found work finally at a restaurant in the 19th arrondissement. Washing dishes, 10 euros an hour, cash paid at the end of each shift. It wasn't much, but it was something. I worked until late, my hands raw from hot water and soap, my back aching, but I had 40 euros in my pocket when I left, and that felt like wealth. I stopped at a small grocery store on the way back to Mia's apartment. I bought rice, eggs, vegetables, chicken, milk, bread. Real food, not just noodles and instant meals. I bought it because I had money, but also because Mia had given me something I hadn't had in months. A place to stay, someone who saw me, a reason to want to come back. When I got to the apartment, I could hear music playing inside. I knocked, and Mia opened the door. She looked tired but more present than she had been yesterday. "You came back," she said, and there was surprise in her voice. I said I would, I replied, and I brought food. Her eyes widened when she saw the bags. Jin, you didn't have to. I wanted to, I said. You let me stay. The least I can do is feed us. That night I made a real meal. Rice, stir-fried vegetables with chicken. Simple but good. We sat on the floor and ate together. And for the first time, Mia asked me questions. Where was I from? Why had I come to France? What was my life like in China? I told her some of it. Not everything. Not about the fight, not about watching my mother die in the street, not about the guilt that ate at me every day. But I told her about working in factories, about trying to make enough to survive, about my mother's determination to give us a better life. And Mia told me about her mother too, about the addiction that had consumed her, about watching her deteriorate, about finding her body one morning after an overdose. I swore I'd never be like her, Mia said, her voice breaking. I swore it, and look at me now. You're not her, I said quietly. You're still here. You're still trying. Am I? Mia laughed bitterly. Because it doesn't feel like trying, it feels like drowning slowly. I understood that feeling, more than she knew. Maybe we're both drowning, I said. But at least now we're not drowning alone. Mia looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. That night marked a shift, a small one, barely noticeable but real. We were still two broken people, still struggling, still barely surviving, but we were doing it together now. And somehow that made all the difference. Over the next few days, Jin and Mia fell into an unspoken routine. Jin worked when he could find work, bringing home money for food. Mia struggled with her addiction but started trying, really trying to use less, to be more present. They cooked together, cleaned together, sat in silence together when words were too hard. It wasn't healing, not yet, but it was something, a foundation being built between two people who'd lost everything, a fragile connection that would grow stronger than either of them could have imagined. 2 weeks passed, then 3, then a month. I stayed on Mia's couch, and she never asked me to leave. It became normal, me working various jobs during the day, coming back to the apartment at night. Mia struggling through her days, sometimes high, sometimes trying not to be, always a little bit broken. We developed routines. I'd wake early, make coffee if we had any, leave quietly so I wouldn't wake her. I'd work, washing dishes, unloading trucks, whatever I could find. Then I'd come back, and if Mia was there, I'd cook. If she wasn't, I'd wait. She always came back eventually. On good days, she'd be mostly sober, and we'd eat together, talk a little. I learned that she was 20, that she'd grown up in the suburbs outside Paris, that her mother had been an addict for as long as she could remember, that she'd dropped out of school at 16, that she'd been on her own since her mother died, that she paid rent by working under the table at a bar. Cash, no questions asked. On bad days, she'd come home already high, or she'd disappear into the bathroom and emerge floating, absent. Those days I'd leave food for her and try to sleep, try not to listen to her cry in the middle of the night. I wanted to help her, wanted to fix it, but I didn't know how. I was barely keeping myself together, barely surviving my own demons. My immigration hearing was approaching, scheduled for early April. Everything depended on it. If they granted me asylum, I could stay, could work legally, could build some kind of life. If they denied it, I'd be deported back to China, to the police, to a labor camp, to death eventually. The fear of it kept me awake at night, my mother's dying words echoing in my head. Live, promise me, don't give up. It was mid-March when things changed between Mia and me. I came back to the apartment one evening to find her on the floor, shaking, sweating, clearly going through withdrawal. I'd seen it before over the past weeks, but never this bad. Mia, I said, kneeling beside her. What do you need? Nothing, she gasped. I'm trying to quit. I threw it all out. But I can't. Jin, I can't do this. She was crying, her whole body trembling. Without thinking, I pulled her into my arms, held her while she shook and sobbed. Yes, you can, I said quietly. You can do this. I'll help you. You can't help, she said into my shoulder. No one can help. I'm just like her. I'm going to die just like her. No, I said firmly. You're not. You're stronger than you think. You're still here. You're still fighting. We sat like that for a long time, on the floor of that shabby apartment, while Mia went through the worst of the withdrawal. I got her water, held her hair back when she was sick, talked to her when she needed distraction, stayed quiet when she needed silence. It took 3 days. 3 days of her being violently ill. Her body screaming for what she wouldn't give it. I called in sick to work, losing money I couldn't afford to lose, and stayed with her the entire time. On the third night, the worst of it passed. Mia fell into exhausted sleep, and I sat beside her mattress, watching her breathe, feeling something shift in my chest. I cared about her. Somewhere in the past month, this angry, broken girl had become important to me. Not just because she'd given me a place to stay, but because I understood her. Because we were both struggling to survive, both haunted by our mothers, both trying to find a reason to keep going. When she woke up the next morning, she looked terrible, but more present than I'd ever seen her. "You stayed," she said, her voice hoarse. "Of course I stayed." "Why?" she asked. "Jin, you barely know me. I tried to steal from you. I'm a mess. Why would you stay?" I thought about that. Why had I stayed? There were practical reasons. I needed the couch, needed the shelter. But it was more than that. "Because you're not alone anymore," I said finally. "And neither am I. And maybe that's enough reason." Something changed in her expression, softened, opened. She reached out and took my hand, squeezed it. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me." "Don't give up on yourself," I replied. "Please." After that, things were different. Better. Mia started going to meetings, NA meetings, Narcotics Anonymous. She'd come back sometimes shaky but determined, sometimes discouraged but still trying. I'd make dinner and listen when she wanted to talk, stay quiet when she didn't. And slowly, day by day, I watched her come back to life. The color returned to her cheeks, her hands shook less. She laughed sometimes, real laughs, not the bitter, hollow sounds from before. "I got a job," she announced one evening in late March, bursting into the apartment with actual excitement on her face. "A real job, at a cafe near Republic. It's not much, but it's legal. They're paying me properly, and my boss knows about my history. She's been through it too. She's gonna help me." "Mia, that's wonderful," I said, and I meant it. I pulled her into a hug, and she hugged back, tight and fierce. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said into my shoulder. "You know that, right? You saved me, Jin." "You saved yourself," I corrected. "I just stayed. That's more than anyone else has ever done." We stood there holding each other, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope, real hope, not the desperate, stubborn kind, but the kind that actually believed things might get better. That night, we stayed up late talking, really talking, about things we'd never discussed before, our dreams, back when we'd had them, our fears, what we wanted our lives to look like if we could have anything. "I want to go back to school," Mia said. "Finish my education. Maybe study social work or something. Help people who are going through what I went through." "You'd be good at that," I said. "You understand what it's like." "What about you?" she asked. "What do you want?" I thought about it. What did I want? For so long, I'd only thought about survival, about making it through another day, another week, avoiding deportation. But if I could have anything, "I want to stay here," I said quietly. "In France. I want papers, legal status. I want to work without being afraid every second. I paused, surprised by what I was about to say. "I want to live, not just survive. I want what my mother wanted for me." Mia took my hand. "When's your hearing?" "Next week, April 3rd. "I'll come with you," she said immediately. "For support, if you want." "You'd do that?" "Jin, you stayed with me through withdrawal. You didn't leave when I was at my worst. Of course I'll come with you." I felt tears prick my eyes. When had I started crying so easily? "We're in this together now," Mia said simply. "Whatever happens." The week before my hearing passed in a blur of anxiety. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Mia made me practice what I'd say, helped me organize my documents, reminded me to breathe when the panic got too bad. The night before, we sat on the couch together. I'd long since stopped sleeping alone on it. We'd started sitting together, close, finding comfort in physical proximity. Not romantic, not yet, but something intimate in its own way. "What if they say no?" I asked quietly. "What if they send me back?" "Then we'll figure something out," Mia said firmly. "You're not going back to die in some camp, Jin. I won't let that happen. You might not have a choice. There's always a choice." She turned to face me. "Listen to me. Even if the worst happens, we'll find a way. You're not alone in this. You have me. That counts for something." I looked at her. really looked at her. This girl who'd tried to steal my wallet 2 months ago. This girl who'd been drowning in addiction and grief. This girl who'd somehow become the most important person in my life. When did you become so important to me? I asked, the question escaping before I could stop it. Mia's eyes widened slightly. I could ask you the same thing. We sat there, inches apart, and I felt something shift between us. Something that had been building for weeks, but neither of us had acknowledged. Jin, Mia said softly, I think I'm falling for you. Is that crazy? We're both such a mess, and we barely have our lives together, but I care about you. More than I've cared about anyone in a long time. My heart was pounding. It's not crazy, I said, because I think I'm falling for you too. We kissed then, tentative and gentle. It wasn't like the movies, desperate or passionate. It was soft, careful, two broken people being tender with each other's wounds. When we pulled apart, Mia was smiling, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said, we face it together, okay? Okay, I agreed. That night I didn't sleep on the couch. I slept next to Mia on her mattress, her head on my chest, her hand in mine, and for the first time since my mother died, I felt like I had something worth fighting for beyond just survival. The immigration office was cold and bureaucratic. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, hard plastic chairs. Mia sat beside me, her hand gripping mine, as we waited for my name to be called. When it finally was, she squeezed my hand. You've got this. The hearing was in a small office with a woman sitting behind a desk, a translator beside her. I sat down, my documents in a folder, my hands shaking. She asked questions. Where was I from? Why had I left? What happened to my mother? What was I fleeing from? I told the truth. Not all of it. Not about the fight. Not about exactly why the police wanted me. But enough. About my mother's death, about having no one left in China. About the fear of persecution if I returned. The translator relayed everything in rapid French. The woman took notes, her expression neutral, giving nothing away. You understand, she said finally, through the translator, that France receives many asylum applications. We cannot grant status to everyone. Do you have proof of the persecution you claim? No, I admitted. Just my word. And these. I pushed forward the documents I had. My mother's death certificate from China, medical records from after I'd been beaten, anything that might help. She looked through them, made more notes. We will review your case and send our decision by mail within 3 months. 3 months. Another 3 months of waiting, of not knowing, of living in limbo. Thank you, I said, because what else could I say? When I came out, Mia stood up immediately. I don't know, I said honestly. They'll decide in 3 months. 3 months, Mia repeated. Okay, we can do 3 months. We walked out of the building together into the spring sunshine. Paris was beautiful in April, trees blooming, people sitting at cafe terraces, the city coming back to life after the long winter. I'm starving, Mia said. Want to get lunch? My treat. I got paid yesterday. You don't have to. I want to, she interrupted. Come on, let's celebrate. Celebrate what? I asked. They haven't decided anything yet. Celebrate that you survived the hearing, Mia said. Celebrate that we're here, together, and it's a beautiful day. Celebrate that we're both still fighting. That's worth something, isn't it? She was right. It was worth something. We found a small cafe and sat outside, drinking coffee and eating sandwiches we couldn't really afford. We talked about nothing important, movies we liked, places we'd want to visit someday, silly things that made us laugh. And sitting there in the spring sunshine, Mia's hand in mine across the table, I felt something I hadn't felt since before my mother died. I felt alive, not just surviving, not just existing, but actually living. Thank you, I said to Mia. For what? For giving me a reason to want to stay, I said. For being here, for seeing me. Mia's eyes got wet. You gave me a reason to get clean, to try, to believe I could be more than my worst moments. She squeezed my hand. Whatever the immigration office decides, Jin, we'll figure it out. We're stronger together than we are apart. I believed her. For the first time in a long time, I believed that things might actually be okay. The 3 months stretched ahead, uncertain and frightening. But I wasn't facing them alone anymore. I had Mia, and she had me. Two broken people, holding each other up, learning slowly that maybe broken pieces could fit together in new ways. that maybe healing didn't mean being whole again. It meant finding someone who loved your jagged edges and helped you carry them. Spring turned to summer. Jin and Mia built a life together in that small apartment, working their jobs, going to meetings, cooking meals, falling asleep tangled together, learning what it meant to care for someone and be cared for in return. The letter from Immigration would come eventually, carrying Jin's fate in an envelope. But until then, they had each day, and they learned to make each day count. Summer in Paris was both beautiful and cruel. The city filled with tourists, cafes spilled onto sidewalks, the Seine sparkled in the sunlight. But for those of us living on the margins, summer meant sweltering nights in apartments without air conditioning, meant the parks where homeless people slept became unbearable, meant the city's beauty felt like a taunt. All this wealth and joy, and none of it for us. But I had Mia, and that made everything bearable. We fell into a rhythm that felt almost normal. I worked mornings at a construction site, afternoons washing dishes. Mia worked at the cafe, coming home smelling like coffee and pastries. We pooled our money, barely enough for rent, food, metro tickets, but we managed. Mia was doing well, really well. She'd been clean for 3 months, going to her meetings regularly, seeing a counselor at a free clinic. I watched her transform. Her skin cleared, her eyes brightened, she laughed more easily. She was becoming the person she was meant to be before grief and addiction had swallowed her. I enrolled in classes, she told me one evening in June, her face glowing with excitement. Night classes to finish my degree. It'll take a while, but I can do it. My boss is letting me adjust my schedule. Mia, that's incredible, I said, pulling her into my arms. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you, she said, looking up at me. You make me want to be better. You make me believe I can be. You were always capable of this, I told her. I just stayed while you figured it out. We kissed, and I marveled at how natural it felt, how right. This girl who tried to rob me 4 months ago was now the person I loved most in the world. Life was strange that way, but beneath the happiness, the fear lurked. The letter from Immigration could come any day. Every time I saw an official-looking envelope in the mailbox, my heart would stop. Every time it turned out to be a bill or junk mail, I'd feel relief mixed with the agony of continued uncertainty. Maybe no news is good news, Mia suggested one night as we lay together in the dark, the sounds of Paris drifting through the open window. Maybe, I said, though I didn't believe it. Or maybe they're just taking their time before they deport me. Don't think like that, Mia said fiercely, propping herself up on her elbow to look at me. We're going to get through this. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. How? I asked. Mia, if they deport me, I'm dead. The police in China, they're looking for me. I'll go to a labor camp. I won't survive. Then we'll find another way, Mia said. We'll go somewhere else. Belgium, Spain, somewhere. We'll run if we have to. I can't ask you to do that, I said. You're finally getting your life together. You have your job, your classes. I won't let you give that up for me. You're not asking, Mia said. I'm offering. Jin, you're not just some guy I let crash on my couch. She paused, searching for words. You're everything. You're my reason. If you have to run, we run together. I pulled her close, feeling tears burn my eyes. I love you, I said. I should have said it before, but I love you, Mia. I love you too, she whispered against my chest. So much. It was mid-July when the letter finally came. I was getting ready for work when Mia called out from the hallway where she'd gone to check the mail. Her voice was strange, tight, scared. Jin, it's here. My hands went numb. I walked to the door on legs that didn't feel like mine. Mia was holding a large envelope with official stamps, her face pale. Do you want me to open it? She asked. No, I said, taking it from her with shaking hands. I have to. We went inside and sat on the couch. Mia took my hand, held it tight. I opened the envelope, pulled out the letter, and read. Official language I could barely understand. I had to read it twice, using the dictionary on my phone to translate the words I didn't know. What does it say? Mia asked, gripping my hand so hard it hurt. They denied it, I said, my voice hollow. Denied asylum. They say I don't meet the criteria for refugee status. They're giving me 30 days to leave France voluntarily. After that, I couldn't finish the sentence. After that, they'd come for me, deport me, send me back to China, to death. Mia made a sound like she'd been hit. No, they can't. We'll appeal. There has to be a way to appeal. The letter says I can appeal, I said, still staring at the words that had just destroyed my future. But appeals rarely succeed. And even if I file one, I'm still deportable. I still have to report to them. And if I don't, I looked at her. Mia, I'm out of options. She was crying, tears streaming down her face. We'll run, like I said. We'll go somewhere they can't find you. And then what? I asked bitterly. I keep running forever? We both become fugitives? You throw away everything you've worked for to hide with an illegal immigrant? I don't care about any of that, Mia said desperately. I care about you, about us. We'll figure it out, Jin. We will. I wanted to believe her, but I'd been running for so long. I was tired, so tired. I need to think, I said, standing up. I need air. I left the apartment and walked, just walked, for hours through Paris in the summer heat. I walked past the tourists taking photos, past the couples holding hands, past all the people who belonged here in ways I never would. My mother's voice echoed in my head. Live, Jin-woo. Promise me. Don't give up. But how was I supposed to live? What life could I build? Always running, always hiding, always afraid. And how could I do that to Mia? Drag her into my nightmare when she was finally building a real life. I found myself at the Seine, standing on a bridge, looking at the water. It would be easy, I thought, to just step over the railing, to end this endless struggle, this constant fear, to stop running. Excuse me, a voice said beside me in French. Are you okay? I turned to find an elderly man looking at me with concern. He switched to English. You look very sad, young man. I'm fine, I said automatically. I don't believe that, the man said gently. I'm a priest, Father Michel. I'm here if you want to talk, or if you just want someone to stand here with you. I don't know why I started talking. Maybe because he was a stranger. Maybe because he was kind. Maybe because I was breaking and needed someone to witness it. I told him everything about my mother, about China, about the fight and the police, and watching her die in the street, about coming to France, about the denial letter, about having nowhere to go and no way forward. Father Michel listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. That's a heavy burden for someone so young, he said finally. Too heavy to carry alone. I'm not alone, I said. I have someone, but I'm going to lose her too. Either I get deported and lose her, or I stay illegally and eventually get caught and lose her that way too. There's no path forward. There's always a path forward, Father Michel said, even when we can't see it. Tell me about this person you love. So I told him about Mia, about how we met, about her struggles, about how we'd helped each other, about how she made me want to live, really live, not just survive. And she wants to run with you? Father Michel asked. Yes, but I can't let her do that. She's finally getting her life together. Have you asked her what she wants? Father Michel asked. Really asked her? Not told her what you think is best for her, but actually listened to what she needs. I'd been so focused on protecting her that I hadn't considered that maybe she needed me too. That maybe we were stronger together, even as fugitives, than we would be apart. Father Michel put a hand on my shoulder. Young man, I've been a priest for 40 years. I've seen a lot of suffering, a lot of people in impossible situations, and I've learned something important. We're not meant to carry our burdens alone. The people who love us want to share the weight. Let her love you. Let her choose to be with you, even if it's hard. And if we get caught, I asked, if I get deported anyway, then at least you'll have loved fully while you could, Father Michel said. At least you'll have fought for something worth fighting for. That's more than a lot of people can say. He gave me a card with his contact information. If you need help, practical help, not just spiritual, call me. The church has resources. We help people in situations like yours. I can't promise anything, but there might be options you haven't considered. Thank you, I said, meaning it. Go home to your girl, Father Michel said. Tell her you love her. Figure out the next step together. I walked back to the apartment as the sun was setting. Mia was there, curled up on the mattress, her eyes red from crying. When she saw me, she jumped up. Jin, I thought I was afraid you. She couldn't finish, just threw herself into my arms. I'm sorry, I said, holding her tight. I'm sorry I left like that. I just needed to think. And, she asked, pulling back to look at me, what did you think? I thought about running, I admitted. I thought about giving up. I thought about all the ways this ends badly. Her face fell. Jin. But then I met someone, I continued, a priest, and he reminded me that I don't have to make these decisions alone, that you get a say in this too. I do, Mia said fiercely, and my say is that we're in this together. Whatever you decide, appeal, run, hide, fight, we do it together. I'm not losing you, Jin. I can't. I'm not asking you to give up your life for me, I said. You're not asking, Mia said. I'm choosing. Don't you get it? You are my life now. You and me together, that's what matters. Not the cafe, not the classes, not any of it if I don't have you. But if we run, then we run, Mia interrupted. We'll go to Belgium. I have a cousin there who might help. We'll find work, figure it out. Or we stay here and hide, live carefully, hope they don't find us. Or we fight, appeal, get lawyers, make noise. I don't know what the right answer is, Jin, but I know we decide together. I looked at this woman who'd been a stranger 5 months ago, who'd tried to rob me, who'd become the center of my world. She was right. We were stronger together. Okay, I said, together. But I need you to understand, if we do this, if we run or hide, it's going to be hard. We'll be looking over our shoulders forever. We'll never feel safe. I haven't felt safe since my mother died, Mia said quietly. Until I met you. You're the only safe I need. We held each other as the light faded from the windows. Tomorrow we'd start figuring out our next move. We'd call Father Michel, research options, make plans. We'd fight for a future together, however impossible it seemed. But tonight we just held each other and tried to believe that love could be enough. I won't let them take you, Mia whispered. I promise. We'll find a way. I wanted to believe her, and for the first time I thought maybe I could. The next morning we called Father Michel. He invited us to meet at his church, a small building in the 20th arrondissement. When we arrived, he greeted us warmly and took us to his office. Tell me everything, he said, about your case, about the denial, about what you've tried. We explained it all. My asylum application, the grounds for denial, the 30-day deadline. Father Michel took notes, asked questions, his face thoughtful. There are some organizations that help people in your situation, he said finally. Legal aid groups that work specifically with refugees and asylum seekers. They might be able to help with an appeal or find other grounds for you to stay. It's a long shot, but it's worth trying. I don't have money for lawyers, I said. These organizations work pro bono, Father Michel explained. Free legal services. I can make some calls, connect you with people. Also, he hesitated. There's something else. It's not legal exactly, but it's not quite illegal either. We leaned forward. What? Mia asked. There are sanctuary movements, Father Michel said. Churches and communities that shelter people facing deportation. You'd essentially be in hiding, but protected. It's not a long-term solution, but it could buy you time while we explore other options. You'd do that, I asked, shocked. You'd risk harboring an illegal immigrant? I'd risk helping a young man who deserves a chance at life, Father Michel corrected. The church has done this before. We believe in compassion, in protecting those who need protection. If you want sanctuary, we can provide it. I looked at Mia. She squeezed my hand, nodding. Yes, I said. Please, any help you can give us. Then let's start, Father Michel said. First, we contact the legal aid organizations, see if there's any grounds for appeal or other immigration pathways. If that fails, we have sanctuary as a backup. Either way, Jin, you're not facing this alone anymore. For the first time since receiving the denial letter, I felt something like hope. Jin and Mia left the church that day with a fragile plan. Fight first through legal channels, with sanctuary as a safety net if all else failed. Father Michel made calls, connected them with lawyers, began building a network of support. The 30-day deadline loomed, each day bringing them closer to a reckoning. But they weren't facing it alone anymore. They had each other, and they had people willing to help. Sometimes, that's enough to keep going. Sometimes, that's what survival looks like. Not winning, but refusing to give up, day after day after day. The lawyers Father Michel connected us with were young, idealistic, overworked, and underpaid. But they believed in what they were doing, believed in helping people like me who'd fallen through the cracks of an indifferent system. They reviewed my case, interviewed me extensively, and found a sliver of hope. Your mother's death, the circumstances around it, that could qualify as persecution, Marie, one of the lawyers explained. You were fleeing government authorities who would have imprisoned you unjustly. That's a valid basis for asylum. The first hearing didn't properly consider this angle. We can appeal on those grounds. How long does an appeal take? Mia asked, gripping my hand. Months, Marie admitted. maybe a year, and there's no guarantee of success. The appeals board is even stricter than the initial review. And in the meantime, I asked, I'm supposed to leave the country in 2 weeks. That's where it gets complicated, Marie said. If you file an appeal, technically you're allowed to stay while it's being processed, but you'll still be in legal limbo. No work permit, no real status. You'd be documented but not legal, if that makes sense. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. But it was something. We file the appeal, I said firmly. Even if it's a long shot, we try. Mia squeezed my hand in support. The appeal was filed 3 days before my deadline. Marie warned me that I'd need to check in regularly with immigration authorities, that I'd be monitored, that any misstep could result in immediate detention and deportation. Stay invisible, she advised. No trouble, no attention. Just exist quietly and pray the appeal goes through. So that's what I did. What we did. The months that followed were strange. I lived in a state of suspended animation, working under the table despite knowing I shouldn't, trying to build some kind of life while knowing it could all be ripped away at any moment. But I had Mia, and that made everything bearable. She threw herself into her classes, into staying clean, into building the future she wanted, on hard days, and there were hard days, when the cravings hit or the memories overwhelmed her. I was there, holding her, reminding her why she was fighting, and on my hard days, when the fear of deportation became paralyzing, when the guilt about my mother consumed me, when the weight of everything felt crushing, she was there for me. We're going to make it, she'd say, over and over. I don't know how, but we're going to make it. Winter came again. 1 year since I'd arrived in Paris. 1 year since I'd been beaten in that park and stumbled into a laundromat where an angry girl with dark circles under her eyes would try to steal my wallet and change my life forever. On a cold December evening, Mia and I were in the apartment, cooking dinner together, a ritual we'd come to cherish. She was telling me about her classes, about a paper she'd written on addiction recovery that her professor had praised. He said it was the most honest, compelling work he'd read in years. She said, her face glowing, Jin, I'm actually good at this. I think I might actually have a future in this field. I always knew you would, I said, pulling her close and kissing her forehead. You're brilliant, Mia. You always has been. She melted into my arms, and we stood there in the tiny kitchen, holding each other, the smell of cooking rice filling the air. I need to tell you something, Mia said, pulling back to look at me. I've been thinking, if your appeal doesn't go through, if they try to deport you. Mia, let me finish, she said. I meant what I said, about going with you, about running if we have to, but I've been researching and there might be another option. What option? Marriage, Mia said simply. If we get married, as a French citizen, I could sponsor you. It's not guaranteed. They investigate to make sure it's a real marriage, not just for papers. But if we can prove our relationship is genuine, which it is, they might grant you status based on family reunification. I stared at her. Mia, I can't ask you to marry me just for papers. You're not asking, she said. I'm offering. And it's not just for papers, Jin. I love you. I want to spend my life with you. This would just make it legal. But what if it doesn't work, I asked. What if they think we're faking it? You could get in trouble for immigration fraud. Then we'll deal with that together, Mia said firmly. Jin, I've thought about this, really thought about it. Yes, there's risk, but there's risk in everything, and I'd rather risk this than lose you. I looked at this woman, 20 years old, still fighting her own demons, still rebuilding her life, piece by piece, and she was willing to tie herself to me legally, to risk her own freedom to save mine. Are you sure? I asked. Mia, are you absolutely sure? I've never been more sure of anything, she said. Marry me, Jin-woo Park. Not because you have to, but because we want to. Because we choose each other. Because we're building a life together anyway, and this just makes it official. I kissed her then, deep and long, pouring every ounce of love I felt into it. When we pulled apart, we were both crying and smiling. Yes, I said. Yes, I'll marry you. I want to marry you. We contacted Marie the next day. She was cautiously optimistic. It could work, she said, but you need to be prepared. They'll investigate thoroughly. They'll interview you separately, ask intimate questions about your relationship, look through everything. You'll need proof that this isn't a marriage of convenience. It's not, Mia said firmly. We've been together for almost a year. We live together. We love each other. This is real. Then gather evidence, Marie advised. Photos together. Witnesses who can testify to your relationship. proof of cohabitation, everything you can find, and be honest in your interviews. Don't try to fabricate anything, they can tell. We spent the next weeks preparing. We took photos together, us cooking, walking along the Seine, celebrating Christmas in our small apartment. We got statements from Father Michel, from Mia's boss at the cafe, from neighbors who'd seen us together. We compiled rent receipts showing we lived together, bank statements, everything that proved this was a real life we were building. We got married in February, on a gray winter day at the city hall. It was a simple ceremony, just us, Father Michel as a witness, and Marie. No fancy dress, no big celebration. Mia wore a simple blue dress she'd found at a thrift store. I wore the only dress shirt I owned. But when the official pronounced us married, when I kissed Mia as my wife, it felt as real and meaningful as any grand wedding could have been. "I love you, Mrs. Park," I whispered against her lips. "I love you too," she whispered back. "Now let's go fight for our future." The immigration interview was scheduled for April. They interviewed us separately, just like Marie had warned. They asked everything: how we met, where we slept, what we ate for breakfast, what Mia looked like when she woke up, what my nightmares were about. Things only someone who truly lived with another person would know. I answered honestly, about the laundromat, about Mia trying to steal my wallet, about how she'd helped me anyway, about her addiction, her recovery, how we'd healed each other, about falling in love slowly, naturally, in the midst of surviving. I told them the truth, that yes, I needed legal status, but I would have chosen Mia regardless, that she was the reason I wanted to stay in France, the reason I wanted to live at all. After the interviews, there was more waiting. The anxiety was crushing, but Mia kept me grounded. "We told the truth," she'd remind me. "There's nothing more we can do. Now we just have to trust." The letter came in early June, 1 year and 4 months after I'd first arrived in Paris. I opened it with shaking hands, Mia pressed against my side. It took me 3 tries to understand the official French. They approved it," I said, my voice breaking. "Mia, they approved it. I have residency. I can stay." Mia screamed, actually screamed, and threw her arms around me. We fell onto the couch, laughing and crying, holding each other tight. "You can stay," she kept repeating. "You're safe. You can stay." I couldn't speak, could only hold her and cry. Crying for my mother who hadn't lived to see this, crying for the year of fear and uncertainty, crying from sheer relief. I could stay. I could work legally. I could build a life. I could be with Mia without always looking over my shoulder. My mother's voice echoed in my head. "Live, Jin-woo. Promise me." "I'm living, Oma," I whispered. "I'm really living." The years that followed were not easy, but they were ours. I got a real job, legal, with taxes and benefits and a contract. I started as a dishwasher at a nice restaurant, but the chef recognized my work ethic and began teaching me to cook. Within 2 years, I was a line cook. Within 5, a sous chef. Mia finished her degree, then got her master's in social work. She started working at a recovery center, helping people struggling with addiction, paying forward what Father Michel and others had done for her. We moved out of that shabby apartment into a small but bright 1-bedroom in the 11th arrondissement. We adopted a cat, a scraggly thing from a shelter that Mia fell in love with immediately. We built a life, piece by piece, day by day. We had hard times. Mia had relapses, 2 of them in the first 3 years. Each time I stayed with her through it, just like she'd stayed with me through my darkest moments. Each time she fought her way back. Each time we came out stronger. I had nightmares about my mother, about China, about the police. Sometimes I'd wake up screaming, convinced they were coming for me. Mia would hold me until the panic passed, whispering that I was safe, that I was home. We had good times too. Birthday celebrations in our apartment with friends we'd made. Other immigrants, people from Mia's program, co-workers from my restaurant. Quiet Sunday mornings reading in bed, cooking together, trying new recipes, laughing when they failed spectacularly. We talked about going back to Korea someday, not to stay, but to visit, to take Mia to see where I came from. But I wasn't ready yet. The memories were still too raw. The guilt about leaving my mother still too heavy. "When you're ready," Mia would say. "No rush. We have time." We had time. That was the miracle of it. We had time to heal, to grow, to become the people we were meant to be before trauma had broken us. 3 years after getting married, we had a real wedding, the one we'd always wanted. Nothing fancy, but surrounded by people we loved. in a small church with Father Michel officiating. Mia wore a white dress, and I wore a suit, and when we exchanged vows, they were real and deep and earned. "I choose you," I said to Mia, echoing the words we'd said to each other so many times over the years. "Every day, I choose you. You saved my life. You gave me a reason to live. I will love you until I take my last breath." "I choose you," Mia said, tears streaming down her face. "You saw me at my worst and loved me anyway. You stayed when everyone else left. You're my home, Jin. Wherever you are, that's home." 5 years after we got married, Mia found out she was pregnant. We hadn't been trying, but we weren't preventing it either. When she showed me the test, we both just stared at it for a long time. "A baby," Mia whispered. "Jin, we're going to have a baby." I thought about my mother, about how she'd fought so hard to give me a chance at life, about the promise I'd made at her grave, about how far I'd come from that desperate broken boy who'd stumbled into a laundromat. "Our baby," I said, pulling Mia close. "Our family. Our daughter was born on a spring day in March, 7 years almost to the day from when Mia and I had met. We named her Hana, which means one in Korean, for new beginnings, for second chances, for being the first of a new generation." When I held her for the first time, so tiny and perfect in my arms, I thought about everything I'd survived to get to this moment. The fight in China, my mother's death, fleeing across borders, living on the streets, the beating, the fear, the endless uncertainty. And I thought about Mia trying to steal my wallet in a laundromat and then giving it back, offering me her couch, fighting through withdrawal while I held her, choosing to love me even when it was hard. "Look what we made," Mia said from the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing. "Jin, look at her. She's perfect." "She is," I agreed, my voice thick with emotion. "Just like her mother." We took Hana home to our apartment, to the life we'd built together. And as I watched Mia rock our daughter to sleep, singing softly in French, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Complete, total peace. I had survived. More than that, I had lived. I had built a life, found love, created a family. Against impossible odds, I had made it. "Thank you, Emma," I whispered that night, standing by the window with Hana sleeping against my chest. "Thank you for making me promise. Thank you for believing I could do this." I'm 31 years old now. Mia is 30. Hana is 2, with my dark hair and Mia's fierce spirit. We live in a bigger apartment now, 2 bedrooms, room for Hana to run around. I'm head chef at the restaurant. Mia is director of the recovery center where she works. We still struggle sometimes. I still have nightmares. Mia still goes to her meetings, still fights her demons. But we do it together, and that makes all the difference. Last year, I finally felt ready to go back to Korea. Not to stay, but to visit. To take Mia and Hana to see where I came from, and to visit my mother's grave, something I'd been unable to do since I left. We stood at her grave, the 3 of us, in the cemetery outside Seoul, where I'd had her moved after I got legal status in France. I told my mother about my life, about Mia, about Hana, about how I'd kept my promise. "I lived, Oma," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I didn't give up. I found someone who loves me. I built a family. I'm happy. I hope that makes you happy too." Mia held my hand while I cried, while I said everything I'd needed to say for 10 years. And Hana, too young to understand but somehow sensing the importance, stayed quiet in her mother's arms. That night, in our hotel in Seoul, I held Mia close. "Thank you," I said, "for everything. For trying to steal my wallet and then giving it back. For letting me sleep on your couch. For fighting for us. For choosing me every single day." "Thank you for staying," Mia replied. "For not giving up when things got hard. For loving me even when I was unlovable. For building this life with me." We kissed, and outside the window, Seoul sparkled with lights. The city where my journey had ended, and in a way begun. Because running from that city had brought me to France, to a laundromat, to Mia, to home. Long, peaceful pause. That's my story. The story of how I survived. How I found love in the most unexpected place. with the most unexpected person. How two broken people helped each other heal. Is it a happy ending? I don't know if I believe in those. Life is too complicated for happy endings. Mia and I still struggle. We still carry our trauma, our grief, our scars. We probably always will. But we carry them together. And that connection, that love, that choice to keep choosing each other, that's enough. More than enough. It's everything. My name is Jin-woo Park. I'm 31 years old. I have a wife who saved my life by trying to steal my wallet. I have a daughter who makes me believe in new beginnings. I have a home in a country that almost deported me. I survived. More than that, I lived. I kept my promise to my mother, and I built something beautiful from the broken pieces of two desperate lives. That's my story. That's our story. And if you're struggling right now, if you're drowning, if you can't see a way forward, please hold on. Please keep going. Please believe that somewhere, somehow, there's a person or a moment or a chance that will change everything. For me, it was a laundromat, a girl with dark circles under her eyes, a choice to trust, to stay, to love. Your moment will come. Your person will find you. Your life is waiting. Just hold on. Promise me. Hold on. Rest now, dear listener. Let this story settle in your heart like a promise. Let it remind you that love can grow in the most broken places, that healing is possible, that second chances are real. Sleep peacefully. Dream of laundromats and stolen wallets and unexpected grace. Dream of two people finding home in each other when they had nowhere else to belong. May you find your own person. May you find your own home. May you keep your promises and live fully, messily, beautifully. Good night. Rest well. And remember, you are stronger than you know.